The first thing Sergeant Robert Miller noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind, not the silence that comes after a battle ends. This was the kind that made experienced soldiers nervous, the kind that felt wrong. At 7:18 a.m., on December 19, 1944, somewhere near the Belgian village of St. Vith, an American Sherman tank rolled slowly through a frozen landscape.
If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below.
Covered in fresh snow. The sky was gray. The trees stood bare and motionless. Frost clung to the tank's steel hull. The engine growled softly as the vehicle advanced along a narrow road cut through the Ardennes forest. Inside the Sherman, 5 men occupied a world of noise, metal, and tension. Sergeant Robert Miller commanded the tank. Corporal James Walker sat in the gunner's position. Private First Class Edward Collins loaded shells. Driver Thomas Reed guided the vehicle forward through the icy terrain. Assistant driver Frank Harris watched for threats through his vision port. For days, American forces had been fighting desperately against the German offensive that history would later remember as the Battle of the Bulge. German armored columns had smashed through Allied lines, creating confusion and chaos across Belgium and Luxembourg. Entire units had been cut off. Roads were clogged with retreating vehicles, refugees, and reinforcements rushing toward the front. Nobody knew exactly where the front line was anymore. That morning, Miller's Sherman belonged to a task force sent to investigate reports of German armor moving near St. Vith. Intelligence was incomplete. Maps were outdated almost as soon as they were printed. The enemy seemed to appear everywhere and nowhere at the same time. As the Sherman moved through the forest, the crew scanned the frozen landscape. Nothing. No movement. No gunfire. No enemy vehicles. Just silence. And then Walker saw it. About 900 yards ahead, partially visible through the trees, sat a German armored vehicle. "Tank," he shouted. Every man inside the Sherman instantly became alert. Miller grabbed his binoculars and studied the target. The vehicle appeared stationary, perhaps abandoned, perhaps hidden, perhaps waiting. No one knew, but in war, hesitation could be deadly. Miller made his decision. Walker aimed carefully. Collins slammed an armor-piercing round into the breech. The gun fired. The entire Sherman shook violently. A second later, the shell struck the German vehicle. Flames erupted. Black smoke climbed into the cold morning sky. Direct hit. Cheers erupted inside the Sherman. The enemy vehicle burned fiercely. The crew felt relief. After days of uncertainty, they had struck first. They had won the encounter. Or so they thought. The celebration lasted less than 30 seconds. A shell suddenly exploded somewhere beyond the trees. The blast echoed through the forest. Then another. And another. Not near the burning vehicle. Not from the direction they expected. From somewhere else. Somewhere hidden. Miller's smile vanished. His eyes narrowed. The destroyed vehicle had not been alone, and whoever was firing now remained invisible. The Sherman immediately halted. Walker swung the turret toward the direction of the explosions. Nothing. The forest concealed everything. Snow-covered hills blocked long-range visibility. Smoke from the burning German vehicle drifted through the trees. The crew searched desperately. No target appeared. Then a shell crashed into the ground less than 50 yards away. Snow, dirt, and ice blasted into the air. The Germans had found them. But the Americans still could not find the Germans. That was the terrifying part. An enemy you can see is dangerous. An enemy you cannot see is far worse. Miller ordered the tank off the road. Driver Reed steered into a patch of trees. Branches scraped against steel armor. The Sherman maneuvered carefully between frozen trunks. Another shell landed nearby. Closer, the hidden enemy was adjusting range. Walker searched through his sight. Nothing, only shadows, only trees, only drifting smoke. The battlefield had become a deadly puzzle. Every second increased the danger. The crew knew German tank crews were highly trained. If the enemy found the correct firing solution before they identified his position, the next shell could be fatal. Minutes passed. The tension became unbearable. Then Harris spotted something. A flash, far away, barely visible, just for an instant. A muzzle blast. Miller immediately focused his binoculars toward the location. There, half concealed behind a rise in the terrain, a German Panther tank. The Americans finally had a target. But the discovery created a new problem. The Panther occupied one of the strongest defensive positions imaginable. Only part of its turret remained visible. Most of its hull sat hidden behind elevated ground. The Germans could fire while exposing very little of their vehicle. The Sherman lacked that advantage. Suddenly the crew understood what had happened. The burning vehicle they destroyed earlier had likely served as bait. Whether intentionally or not, it had drawn their attention while the real threat waited concealed nearby. The battle had only begun. Walker carefully aimed. The range exceeded 1,000 yards. Not ideal for a Sherman engaging a Panther. Everyone inside the tank understood the reality. The Panther possessed thicker frontal armor. Its powerful 75 mm gun could destroy a Sherman at ranges where American shells often struggled. Many American tankers had learned this lesson the hard way across France and Belgium. But there was no choice. The Panther had to be engaged. Collins loaded another armor-piercing shell. Walker fired. The round streaked across the snowy battlefield. A moment later it struck. Sparks flew. No penetration. The Panther remained operational. Almost immediately the German tank answered. Its gun flashed. The incoming shell screamed toward the Sherman. The round struck a tree only yards away. Wood exploded. Splinters flew through the air like deadly knives. The near miss rattled everyone. Walker fired again. Another hit. Again no penetration. The Panther seemed almost invulnerable from the front. The duel continued. Each crew fought for survival. Each shot mattered. Each mistake could be the last. Meanwhile, the battlefield grew increasingly confusing. Reports crackled over the radio. American infantry nearby had encountered German forces moving through the forest. Additional enemy vehicles might be approaching. Nobody knew how many. The crew faced a terrifying possibility. The Panther might only be the beginning. Miller realized remaining stationary would eventually lead to destruction. The German crew held the better position. Something had to change. He quickly developed a risky plan. The Sherman would move. Aggressively, instead of exchanging long-range fire, they would maneuver through the forest and attempt to attack from another angle. The decision carried enormous danger. Moving exposed the tank. A single accurate hit could end everything. Yet staying put guaranteed little. Reed accelerated. The Sherman lurched forward. Tracks crushed frozen ground. The tank disappeared deeper into the trees. The Panther fired again. The shell passed behind them. For now, movement was helping. The Sherman advanced carefully through the forest. Visibility remained poor. Snow-covered branches hung low. The terrain became uneven. Every turn revealed new uncertainty. Minutes felt like hours. Nobody spoke unnecessarily. The crew concentrated completely on survival. Then they discovered something unexpected. Fresh tracks. German tracks. Heavy tracks. More than one vehicle. The evidence cut through any remaining optimism. German armor had indeed moved through the area, perhaps recently, perhaps very recently. The hidden Panther was not operating alone. You can almost feel the cold tension inside that Sherman at that moment. Every crew member understood the implications. They were hunting an enemy force whose size remained unknown, and that enemy force already knew Americans were nearby. The Sherman continued advancing. Suddenly, Walker spotted movement. Not a tank. Infantry German soldiers crossing between trees. Dozens of them, supporting armor. The battlefield was becoming larger and more dangerous by the minute. Machine gun fire erupted. The Sherman engaged the infantry while continuing its maneuver. German troops scattered for cover. Snow erupted around them. The forest echoed with gunfire. For a brief moment, chaos replaced uncertainty. At least now the Americans could see some of their enemies. But the Panther remained hidden somewhere ahead, waiting, watching, searching. Then another muzzle flash appeared. Closer this time. Walker reacted instantly. The turret rotated. The gun fired. The shell disappeared through the trees. A second later came an explosion. Not a penetration, but close. Very close. The Panther had shifted positions. That meant the Germans were nervous too. Despite superior armor, they understood the danger of remaining predictable. Now both crews hunted each other through the frozen forest. The engagement transformed into a deadly game of patience and positioning. Hours seemed compressed into moments. Every movement carried consequences. Every glimpse could reveal opportunity or disaster. Around midday, the weather worsened. Clouds thickened. Visibility declined. Snow began falling. The forest grew darker, more mysterious, more dangerous. The battlefield seemed designed to hide killers. Then came the moment no tanker ever wanted to experience. The Panther fired first. The shell struck the Sherman. A tremendous impact slammed through the vehicle. Metal screamed. The crew was thrown violently against interior surfaces. For several terrifying seconds, nobody knew what happened. Smoke filled part of the fighting compartment. Alarms echoed. Then came the realization. The shell had not penetrated. It struck at an angle and glanced away. The Sherman remained alive. Barely, but luck rarely lasts forever in combat. Everyone knew the next hit might be different. Miller understood they could not survive another prolonged exchange. The Panther had to be located and destroyed. Immediately, the Sherman pushed forward once more. Deeper, closer, riskier, the crew searched relentlessly. Then, at last, fortune shifted. A break in the trees opened visibility across part of the battlefield. Walker saw movement. There, roughly 500 yards away. The Panther. For the first time, the Americans observed more than just its turret. Part of the side hull had become exposed while maneuvering. This was the opportunity they needed. This was the shot they had been searching for all morning. Miller recognized it instantly. So did Walker. So did every man inside the tank. Collins loaded another armor-piercing round. His hands moved automatically despite exhaustion and stress. Walker steadied the gun. The Sherman halted. Time seemed to slow. The forest became silent. The enemy tank filled the sight picture. One chance, maybe only one. Walker squeezed the trigger. The gun roared. The shell crossed the snowy clearing. It struck the Panther's side. A bright flash erupted. Smoke followed. The German tank stopped moving. For several seconds, nobody knew the result. Then flames appeared. Small at first, then larger still. The Panther burned. The American crew stared through their sights. The enemy that had haunted them all day was finally visible. And finally defeated. Relief washed through the Sherman. Yet nobody celebrated immediately. Experience had taught them caution. Too many surprises had already occurred. The crew continued observing. Minutes passed. No movement, no return fire, no additional tanks appeared, only smoke rising into the winter sky. The hidden enemy was gone. But the battle itself was far from over. Throughout the Ardennes, thousands of soldiers continued fighting. Tank crews faced similar struggles across frozen forests and snow-covered roads. Entire divisions collided in brutal engagements where visibility, weather, terrain, and luck often mattered as much as firepower. The crew resumed movement. The mission continued. The war continued. Yet something had changed. Every man inside that Sherman now carried a lesson that would remain with him forever. The first shot rarely tells the whole story. In combat, apparent success can be dangerously misleading. A burning vehicle may hide a larger threat. A quiet forest may conceal an entire armored force. A battlefield that appears won may actually be entering its most dangerous phase. Years later, many veterans of the Battle of the Bulge would describe the same feeling. Not fear of the enemy they could see, fear of the enemy they could not. Fear of the unseen gun beyond the hill, the hidden tank behind the trees, the unknown movement in the fog, the possibility that something dangerous waited just beyond vision. That December day near St. Vith demonstrated exactly why armored warfare in World War II was so terrifying. Steel, firepower, and training mattered. But uncertainty mattered too. Perhaps more than anything else. The Sherman crew fired first. They scored the first hit. They believed they had seized control of the battlefield, and for a brief moment they thought the fight was over. They were wrong. The real battle began only after that first shot. As darkness slowly approached the frozen Ardennes and smoke drifted above the forest, Sergeant Robert Miller's Sherman rolled onward through the snow. Behind them burned the wreck of the Panther that had hunted them for hours. Ahead lay more roads, more uncertainty, and more battles waiting in the shadows. Because that was the reality of the Battle of the Bulge. No victory felt complete. No silence felt trustworthy. No road felt safe. And no soldier could ever be certain that the enemy he had just defeated was the last one waiting beyond the trees. The American crew had learned that lesson the hard way. They fired first. They hit first. But they discovered something every veteran eventually understood. On the battlefields of World War II, the most dangerous enemy was often the one you never saw until it was almost too late.
If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below.